ChatGPT, is there Christian persecution happening in Nigeria?
Short answer, yes. Multiple recent, reputable reports show Christians in Nigeria are being attacked, kidnapped, displaced, and in many cases killed. Whether you call those deaths persecution depends on definitions, but the weight of evidence shows a pattern of violent targeting of Christian communities alongside wider communal and insurgent violence. Open Doors, the quick evidence, latest reporting. Faith-targeted violence is being documented now. NGOs that track persecution, Open Doors, International Christian Concern, and major outlets report repeated attacks on Christian villages, churches, and clergy in 2025, with many killed, kidnapped, or forced from their homes. Open Doors counts differ widely. Some groups report hundreds killed in particular waves, e.g. ICC's early 2025 summaries, while other organizations and media cite much larger cumulative tolls across months, years. Methodology and time windows explain most of the gap. ICC drivers are mixed but include explicitly religious actors. Violence is driven by a mix of insurgent Islamist groups, Boko Haram, ISWAP, heavily armed Fulani militias involved in herder-farmer conflict, and local communal ethnic fights. In many incidents, attackers explicitly targeted Christian communities. In others, the motive is contested: land, resources, ethnicity plus religion. Open Doors, human rights and international reporting call it a serious crisis. Human Rights Watch, news outlets, FT, Newsweek, and human rights groups highlight rising rural violence, mass displacement, and slow or inadequate state protection, even as authorities sometimes dispute claims that violence is primarily religiously motivated.
ChatGPT, how does Nigeria rank in Christian deaths and killings in the world?
Here's what the most recent credible data show about how Nigeria ranks globally in Christian deaths, killings for faith-related reasons. Key latest figures. In the 2024 Open Doors World Watch List, Nigeria had 3,100 Christians killed for their faith. ACI Africa, that number, 3,100, was the highest among all countries in that category for 2024. Nigeria was the country with the most Christians killed and kidnapped in 2024, according to Open Doors. The total for faith-related Christian killings globally in that period was about 4,476. Nigeria's share, therefore, was a very large portion of the total. Putting that together, highest absolute number of Christian killings in the world in 2024. Proportionally, Nigeria accounts for a majority of Christian deaths for faith reasons globally, per Open Doors around 70% for 2024. EW Magazine Online, Nigeria is ranked 7th in the World Watch List regarding overall persecution and discrimination, which considers not just killings, but also legal restrictions, societal pressure, church and property attacks, etc.
ChatGPT, is there forced conversion of Christians by terrorists in Nigeria?
Yes. There are credible reports saying that in some cases Christian individuals, especially girls, young women in Nigeria, have been forced or pressured to convert to Islam by terrorists or by groups with extremist ideology. The cases are not always easy to verify in full detail, but the evidence from multiple human rights sources suggests forced conversion is among the tactics used. Here are some examples and what is known. Boko Haram forced conversions threats. A young Christian woman, Hajar, told Reuters that Boko Haram fighters told her she must convert to Islam under threat of death during her captivity. Fox News, Human Rights Watch has documented that Boko Haram has abducted Christian students and women, threatening them with whipping, beatings or execution if they do not convert to Islam. www.christiantoday.com. The case of Leah Sharibu, a Christian schoolgirl abducted by Boko Haram, ISWAP, reportedly was not released with others because she refused to convert to Islam. Wikipedia 2. Recent village attacks with demands to convert. An International Christian Concern report from January 2025 describes coordinated raids by Boko Haram in Christian villages in Borno State. In some of those raids, Christian villagers were intimidated and told to convert to Islam or face death. ICC 3. Forced marriages, pressure via social and state actors. Some reports say Christian girls are abducted, then groomed for marriage to Muslim men or pressured into conversion, sometimes with the complicity or under the oversight of local religious groups or institutions. The Nigerian Voice, the Dumercy orphanage case. A Christian orphan's child was allegedly taken and converted to Islam while in state custody in Kano. The child's name was changed from Emmanuel to Muhammad. The orphanage says this is a forced conversion, while the child is separated from the parent. Truth Nigeria. How strong widespread the evidence is, and limitations. The evidence comes from credible NGOs, media interviews, human rights organizations. The context often involves abductions, displacement, warfare, and conditions of severe coercion. So, forced conversion may happen in captivity under threat or under duress, e.g. convert or die, convert or else suffer abuse. Forced conversion is part of the reported repertoire of violent extremist groups in Nigeria, particularly Boko Haram's ISWAP, and in some local situations involving abductions, terror or vulnerability, displaced persons, orphans, etc. The scale and exact numbers are harder to pin down, but it is real.
ChatGPT. What happens to Christian communities where terrorists attack?
When terrorists or armed groups attack Christian communities in Nigeria, particularly in states like Benue Plateau, Kaduna, Borno, Taraba, and Nasarawa, the aftermath is often catastrophic and long-lasting. Here's a breakdown of what typically happens before, during, and after such attacks, based on reports from Open Doors, Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, and local Nigerian sources, 2024-2025. Sudden night raids. Most attacks happen at night or during early morning prayers. Armed men, often identified as Fulani militias, Boko Haram, or ISWAP insurgents, storm villages, burn houses, destroy farms, and target church buildings. Churches and homes burned. Churches are prime targets. Even small village chapels get torched. Homes are looted or set ablaze to erase evidence of Christian presence. Example, in Mangu LGA, Plateau State, May 2025, over 200 homes and several churches were razed in a 48-hour assault. Survivors said the attackers chanted Islamic slogans and fired indiscriminately. Number 2, displacement and refugee camps. Mass flight survivors flee into nearby forests or neighboring states. Some end up walking for days. They lose farmland, property, and livestock, their main livelihood sources. B. IDP, internally displaced persons camps. Many displaced Christians crowd into makeshift camps or church compounds. These are usually underfunded and lack food, water, sanitation, or medical care. C. Long-term displacement. Because rebuilding is slow and attacks sometimes repeat, many IDPs remain in camps for years. In Benue alone, over 2 million displaced people, mostly Christian farmers, have been living in temporary shelters since 2019. Entire Christian-majority villages have been wiped off the map in central Nigeria. Number 3, social and psychological aftermath. A. Trauma survivors suffer severe post-traumatic stress, especially children who witness parents being killed or abducted. Women survivors of abduction often face stigma, especially those who return pregnant from forced marriages or assaults. B. Family fragmentation. Many families are separated, children lost during chaos, husbands missing, wives abducted. Even after release, reuniting them is rare. C. Loss of identity and faith. Struggles ironically, persecution sometimes strengthens faith, but it also leaves many questioning why they were abandoned or why the government does nothing. Most Christian villages attacked are agrarian. When farms are burned or occupied by armed herders, survivors have no income sources. Benue and Plateau states, once Nigeria's food belt, have seen massive output drops due to this violence. B. Seizure of land. After attacks, armed groups often occupy the deserted villages. Survivors who try to return find others living on their farms, often under the protection of local power brokers or militias. Nob C. Youth unemployment and migration. Many displaced Christian youths leave for cities or cross borders, deepening rural depopulation. Hammer 5. Impunity and weak state response. A. Delayed or absent security forces. Reports repeatedly show that soldiers or police arrive hours or even days after an attack, sometimes only to count bodies. In some areas, villagers say they had warned authorities beforehand but were ignored. B. Rare justice. Very few attackers are arrested or prosecuted. This emboldens further attacks. Survivors often feel the government either can't or won't protect them. C. Political sensitivity. Officials often describe the violence as farmer-herder clashes or banditry, which downplays its religious targeting. Church and community resilience. Despite immense suffering, Christian communities often show remarkable resilience. Churches serve as emergency shelters and food centers. Faith-based NGOs like Christian Solidarity Worldwide, Open Doors and Barnabas Aid rebuild schools, provide trauma counseling and distribute relief supplies. Many pastors refuse to leave their people, even after losing family members, and continue services in burnt-out ruins. Long-term outlook. Population shift. Northern and central Nigerian regions are slowly losing Christian populations as they migrate south.
ChatGPT. Going by 2025 reports, how many churches have been destroyed in Nigeria and how many mosques?
I couldn't find reliable, up-to-date numbers from 2025 that document how many mosques have been destroyed in Nigeria, comparable to the reports for churches. The data I found are mostly about churches, with some small reports of mosques, but nothing comprehensive. Here's what the sources do say about churches and what sparse info is available for mosques. What the reports say about church destruction. From the Inter-Society Rights Group, they estimate about 1,200 churches are razed or sacked every year in Nigeria. NigeriaWorld.com. They also say that in total, since around 2009 up to 2025, about 19,100 churches have been lost, attacked, burned, destroyed, etc. Vanguard News. Some articles clarify that destroyed, sacked or shuttered, forced closed, forcibly abandoned are included in lost, not only completely razed structures. Factually, what the reports say about mosques, there is very limited data on mosques being destroyed. One small local report by Murik, Muslim rights concern, says 2 mosques were demolished in Aramoko, Ekiti State, for a market project. MurikNigeria.com. Another older report, though not from 2025, from Murik states that in Borno State, between 2019 and some recent time, about 11 mosques and 4 churches have been demolished by the Borno State Geographic Information Service Task Force. But that is outside the scope of the larger national totals for 2025. Conclusion. So to answer your question, churches. There are credible reports of thousands being destroyed, 4,200 per year, 19,100 over 16 years from 2009 to 2025. Mosques, no solid national estimate for mosques destroyed in the same way.